Welcome back to Developing the Leader Within podcast. I'm Enrique, and today I have Ashkan Tashvir, founder, CEO at Engenesis, and best-selling author of Being the Source of Power. Ashkan, thank you so much for being with me today. Such an early day for you over there in Australia. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Enrique. Yeah, it's actually quite early on now here in Australia, but yeah, I'm quite excited to be here with you.
Outstanding, folks. We're going to be talking about leadership and being, a subject that I have been interested in for a long time because I've always asked myself why leaders just can't be. And today we're going to be talking about that. But Ashkan, before we get into that topic of being, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I mean, there's this 4 different, seasons of my mind I can tell you about. One is me being a technologist, particularly, my background is in software development, or we build technologies now in my company. And there is this other part to me, which is like me being an investor. So I'm a venture builder, I'm an investor. I actually like it. And then and the third part is like me being as a parallel entrepreneur, you would say venture builder. I work on a few businesses at the same time, the shared resources. And the fourth one, which is perhaps the most relevant one today here, that we're going to talk about, is my obsession with human beings. So I'm quite obsessed with human beings, leadership, and yeah. So that's a very brief, introduction to me.
Yeah. Oh yes, and we both share that obsession with human beings. I do it specifically on the leadership development, but what you're working on is such an intriguing and in-depth process, a methodology, a framework, as you put it, a framework where it actually allows you to identify how you are and how you are actually being. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit as we get along with the conversation. But just to get this started, what is being?
That's a very, very good question. So first, I would like to acknowledge you for saying how we are being, not necessarily who we are being, because we don't even dare to talk about who we are being. It's not something that tangible. It's quite mysterious. But when we're referring to how we're being, or being, is like we're referring to the essence, the nature of human being. And nowadays, lots of people have problem with the term nature, as if like we don't have any nature, or but the technical term in philosophy for it is quiddity, or a whatness. It's the whatness. Now, for the ease of use, we say how you are being. It's basically the combination of your qualities, the way that you channel yourself out into the world. So your being is how you conduct yourself. And it's your attitude, it's your manner, it's your characteristics. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, we was talking. There's an assessment, right? This profile that you have, and we'll get into some of that later on as well. But it truly identifies, and I've taken it myself. Truly identifies where you are, and truly specifies areas. And I love those areas that you got, and I'll give you an opportunity to share those here in a little bit. But I love how you break those areas down. And if there's anything I have thought over for one day continuously, is the end result of that profile, and so it's truly important for leaders to start identifying their current situation in terms of being. So
mm,
why is it important for leaders to get acquainted with being?
mm. Well, in today's world, we can say that the dominant narrative when it comes to like knowing and understanding human being is like looking into human being from a purely cognitive perspective, or for example, like behavioralism, like it's you and your behaviors, or it's you and your thoughts and feelings. But there's more to that. There's more to that, and um, so the behaviors are on the surface. It's visible to everyone. But what drives those behaviors are not that visible. And like, in the framework that I have prepared, we focus on more deeper qualities of human being. And those qualities that actually they drive the behaviors. They in great part they determine what decisions you're going to make, and then how you're going to behave. So um, sometimes I say it this way. I say that if you're going to address behaviors, it's like watering the leaves of a tree. So you can water the leaves of a tree, but there's not much you're going to achieve. So it's better to go and then address the root, and then the more deeper qualities. Yeah. So behaviors, like change the behavior, change the outcome. It becomes quite a dominant way of thinking in a way. And that's the thing that I'm trying to challenge, using the framework. Yeah.
And you mentioned that I'm thinking about my my profile. I was
Mm.
able to not only take it but actually get a debrief. Now, folks, this is a 2-hour debrief. This is not a quick said and done type of thing that you get with any other profile, which is one of the aspects that I really loved about it. You got to actually speak to the subjects that were highlighted in your profile. Now, I tend to think that I am a very transparent, very open person. I hate lies by all aspects, and I tend to believe that my authenticity and vulnerability are very high, simply because I like to tell the truth, regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter whether there's consequences or not. I tell the truth. But surprisingly enough, in my profile, vulnerability and authenticity was one of the lowest things on there. And I said, what in the world was that about? And so, what that number one, that surprised me, right? That surprised me because like I say, I tend to think that I am very vulnerable and and authentic. But there are some underlying things, and that's what I liked about the profile. There's underlying things that may have happened and occurred in your lifetime that tend to show up in how you um, answer questions and things like that. So, a funny thing was that what I thought I was good at ended up showing on the profile that it wasn't as high as I thought. Is that something that you see often with leaders and people that take these profiles?
Mm. Yeah. I can clearly, understand what you're saying. Um, well, like the being profile as the profiling assessment, we call it ontometric tool. Basically, there's an ontological model listing series of qualities of human beings, 31 of them, that I found to be quite important after studying highest achievers. And and you're referring to that, but see, it's not necessarily just the assessment, but the actual ontological model, those qualities. We talk about integrity a lot, you know, and in daily life, you know, in a conventional way. Now, when we refer to the integrity of any system, including human being, there are constituent parts that, you know, those parts, they shape the whole, you know, the whole human being. Now, for any system to be, you know, operating in an optimum level, you want all the bits and pieces to be in place. You want all these parts to operate in an optimal level. So what I've done in the ontological model layer of the framework is I've broken down these qualities in, you know, like the integrity of human beings into these qualities. Now, therefore, it's not vague, and you can actually look into the integrity of your being, and you can see which areas exactly you perhaps need to, you know, you can relate to differently. For example, how you relate to anxiety, how you relate to fear, how you relate to authenticity, how you relate to awareness, you know. Now, so you were mentioning like how you were surprised, yeah, with some of your scores, yeah. So we actually like have distinctions, like each of these qualities. We have distinctions for these qualities, and they're not necessarily like aligned with the conventional definition of these words, because we give the primacy to the meaning that that word is referring to. It's not the other way. It's not like there's this word and then there's this meaning to that word. There is this quality, there is this meaning, or we can say concept, that I found to be important, like through qualitative research and studies, like looking into the highest achievers of the world and then see what qualities are the qualities that they matter most when it comes to effective performance. Not whatever performance, not being hamster on the wheel, but effective performance. So yeah, and for example, when you were referring to authenticity, we're not necessarily talking about you being honest. And, you know, honesty is one of the behavioral manifestations of this particular way of being. But there's far more to do with authenticity. You know, we can actually spend the whole time today talking about authenticity because that's a very big topic. But in a concise form, I would say authenticity is how you relate to reality of the matters. Authenticity is like how it's about how lenient or fickle you're going to be in picking your opinions and beliefs. You know, are you a critical thinker? Are you a typical thinker? Whatever comes to your mind, you go, oh yeah, that's true. Or no, you know, like you have some filters in place, and validity and accuracy of your conceptions of different parts of reality, it matters to you. It's the congruence of your conceptions with how things actually are. That's a part of it. But then that includes the way that you're relating to yourself, which is your self-image, and also the way that you project yourself out there to others, which we call it persona. So there's a lot, you know, when it comes to authenticity. It's not just lying or no. Another very important thing is like in the being profile, like we're not measuring the presence or absence of something. So let's say, for example, we're not measuring how anxious a person is, but what we are measuring is the health score. It's like how you relate to anxiety generating situations. Will it, if you're in that situation, you're going to collapse, you're going to be suppressed, or no, you can move on, step forward despite that anxiety. Or for example, when it comes to awareness, it's not like we're not measuring how knowledgeable you are, or how wise you are. We are measuring how you relate to the things that you know and understand, and the things that you don't know and you don't understand. For example, if you don't understand something, would you collapse? Or no, you go and then read the right books, and get the right advisors and mentors, and work with other people so that finally you can work it out.
Well, I tell you that profile was eye-opening, and it's true. You mention a lot, and you learn that it's a relationship type of thing with these different markers that you guys test for in your profile. But it
Mm.
was great. It was a great experience, and I loved every bit of it. Definitely loved the debrief, very detailed, and so I enjoyed that. Now, a
Mm.
lot of leaders are looking to learn more about themselves
Mm.
and how they are being in order to succeed. So, what role does being have in a leader's ability to succeed?
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, so the thing is, when I was studying the highest achievers, um, I've, one of the things I've realized is they're really effective in reading people. Yeah, so they should not come as a surprise. That's why they can align the right people together, around that vision that they have, and they can get the best out of people. So they know how to make the deals. They can sell things, including selling their vision, let alone their products or offerings. And that people aspect is quite important. Now, working with not necessarily highest achievers, like, or not studying highest achievers, when I was working with different people, like from startup owners, entrepreneurs, SMEs, and some corporation leaders, I've realized that, um, despite the fact that some of them are quite exceptional in their field, um, they knew very little about human being, the very being that they need to work so much with. Um, you know, um, Team up with them, and then also the people that you're going to serve, your clients, your users, your customers. So, and that's a very very important thing that I've realized at that time. So the aim was not necessarily with the assessment tool, because like I would put far more emphasis on the ontological model, or the whole framework, including the assessment. So, and the assessment is not something stand alone. While it can be used like that, because we're measuring some qualities, so it can be used, but it's inside the whole framework. Now, so and so that realization, as well as um, the fact that I was seeing that, oh, there's all these inauthenticities going on, lack of commitment, all these wastage going on there. So this strikes me, strike me to actually work on something of this type. Now, so to go back to your question is, like, I wanted to give this series of tools and frameworks to the leaders, particularly leaders of organizations, um, to be able to read human beings, understand human beings, decode human beings more effectively. Now, it's not a matter of judgment. It's not like we're saying that sit and judge people through this model and the assessment. It's more um, it's more about assessing people, not judging people. And like I know, sometimes say, oh, it's not good to judge. No, we're not judging in that sense. we're encouraging leaders to assess, and we do it anyways, you know, like you do it. And but if you don't know where to look at, then, you know, you may be biased, or, you know, it may be too subjective in a sense. So basically the model is giving them this ability to effectively and consistently read human beings. You know, so, and, you know, if you want to go to a relationship, and any serious relationship, it's important to you how authentic that person is. You know, it's important to you how committed that person is. And the same thing goes if you're going to, you know, shape a business partnership, or hiring a person, or choosing a leader you want to follow. It's very important for you to looking at these qualities. You know, I'm not saying that you go and ask people to complete an assessment. As I said, like, that's just one thing. And if someone wants to be, you know, a bit more accurate, you know, that you know, they can use a tool, but the model, like, what constitutes in integrity of human being. So yeah, so that's basically giving that mirror to the leaders, to or to people in general, so that they can look into themselves, you know, and generate a very unique level of self-awareness around how they are being. And also, it's not just a mirror so that they can look into themselves, it also is a lens through which they can understand other human beings. So that's basically why I think that most of the leaders and coaches, like, we have a quite good number of people in our community at the moment. Some of them are leaders of, you know, businesses, like in different sizes. And yeah, so we've been long enough there that we see what are the impacts of adopting the framework. There are actually some case studies, like some articles and case studies that I've prepared with some of the people in our community. I'm happy to share it. You know, and you may be putting it as the comment in the descriptions. Yeah.
Yeah, and folks, you know, just to be clear, you know, most of us understand, but for those that may not be clear on this, judgment brings penalty, assessment bring understanding, and that's why it's so important for a leader to assess themselves, if not themselves, at least their group, where they can actually understand how all things flow together. Is part of our transformation. And speaking about transformation, how can leaders transform their being with your framework?
Well, I mean, so first I would like to emphasize on the fact that that self-awareness, that self-awareness, that authentic self-awareness, is a big thing on itself. Because, see, in the model, we have three meta factors, so very high level qualities: awareness, integrity, and effectiveness. Now, so you always, as a human being, you always dance between a degree of awareness to a degree of effectiveness, and what sits in the middle is integrity. Yeah, so it's like, I look into myself and then see what are those troubled sides, you know, troubled parts. What are those shadows, we call them? What are those areas that are compromising my integrity? Hence, it impacts effectiveness and workability. Yeah. So the awareness of those areas is quite important. And once you realize that, once you realize those hotspots, very easy, you know, there are those areas that it's a good idea for me to go and look into and you know, polish it or transform it. And then, you know, like with practice, it's going to generate a higher degree of effectiveness. Now, so there is a layer in the framework which I call it transformation methodology. It's a high level methodology where it shows how you can go from that a degree of awareness to a degree of effectiveness. There are some series of tools that it's provided. Actually, it's in the book. It's in the main book, the Being book, and if people are interested, they can definitely look into that. Yeah, so there's 3 parts of the transformation methodology. Yeah, well, I can actually share the diagram with you, and you can maybe make it available to people. So there's awareness, and then there's the application, and then there is like effectiveness. When it comes to awareness, look, there's 3 stages to awareness. One is reception. I don't know to what extent you want me to go to details of that, but yeah, so there's reception where your attention is being drawn to a matter that you were neglecting before, you were not present to. And then once that happens, that eureka moment of it, that awakening happens, you're being receptive, hence we call it reception. And that, by the way, requires vulnerability, yeah, in order for you to be open and receptive. Then it goes to the next stage, which is what we'll call it perception. It's where you go. So when it comes to reception, you're being informed, you have information. Now, then when it goes to perception is where you go and then acquire as much as objective knowledge possible around that matter. Let's say, for example, in our case, it can be, how you're relating to responsibility, how you're relating to authenticity, or any of the qualities we have. Now, but no, so this gives you knowledge. So the reception leads to information. Perception leads to knowledge, but this objective knowledge, assuming that's congruent and authentic, it's not going to do much in action. Now, that's a surprising part sometimes, but it's like, for example, that the sun rises from the east. Yeah, so that's a kind of a statement. So what are you going to do about it? I mean, so what? But the next state is what I call it conception. So conception is quite different to perception. Conception is where you relate that acquired knowledge back to your own life, to something that matters to you. It has context. See, for example, like if you're building your dream house and you're working with an architect, then it's so important to you that which direction sun is going to rise from, because then you want to know where to design the windows in your master bedroom, so that you receive sun. Or, for example, if you are a farmer, it's so important to you how sun is going to rise, because then based on that information, that knowledge, you're going to make an effective decision for you. So yeah, so while perception is more like about learning and studying something and acquiring potentially objective and accurate, authentic knowledge, conception is where you gain wisdom. So there's this practical element associated with it, and you're related back to something that it matters to you. It has context. So it's an iterative process around the awareness, and then once that is there, a sufficient level of awareness, you can relate that back to the context of your life. You gain wisdom around that. Then you go and start applying it, and goes to the next stage. And there, like we have a kind of iterative approach that you execute, you track, you learn, and then you refine that, and then you execute again. So you go through this process, and there will be a time that you will gain a bare minimum level of effectiveness, which I call it competency. And then as you practice more and then go through more, you know, understanding, you gain more understanding of more wisdom of how things are working around that matter. And then you practice it again and again. Then you go to another level of effectiveness, which I call it proficiency, and then all the way to the time that you gain mastery. And that's a time that ease and flow will come. And so there is a very, very poor literature when it comes to transformation. There are lots of articles and even peer-reviewed articles in academia you can find around change management, let's say, but it's not the same thing. There is very, very poor literature around transformation. It's quite vague to understand it. That's why I've tapped into martial arts, like studying people like Kenji Tomiki, Chikara Kano, the founders of many, particularly Japanese martial arts styles, Muri Oshiba, the founder of Aikido, and because I was so convinced, even having first-hand experience from the time that I was a little boy. So it was in martial art that I was quite convinced that people actually transform. It's not just your muscles. It's not like your physical body, but you become more assertive. You transform your relationship with courage. You can step forward despite presence of fear. You transform your relationship with peace of mind. Most traditional martial arts, they do have practices around meditation. So basically, so that's mainly the root. That's not the only place that I've looked into, but that's the major place that I've looked into and influenced that transformation methodology quite. And since like it was designed, it was put in practice, and then we do have a quite good number of coaches in our community, and through working with them and then working with their clients, so we gathered our data, empirical data, both through the being profile as well as working with some of these coaches, and I'm convinced that it's quite an effective way of transforming a relationship with different qualities. Yeah.
Well, yes, and folks, we all know transformation is not easy, but transformation is attainable. I grew up with a saying of, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? And I grew up with that saying, and it's because it's attainable. You can get there. You can actually transform from wherever you are currently, and with some work. Obviously, it takes some work. It takes some dedication, a lot of awareness, right? A lot of awareness, and the relationship. But what I love about your framework is it addresses relationship with a such and such, right? And when you start going through this profile and you start realizing that your relationship with a particular part of that profile may not be as you think, and then you start questioning, well, why is that? Why is it that when this comes up, I address it this way? One of the things that came up for me was basically moments where I allow my wife to do some things that I should be doing, right? And so it's a relationship there, and there's a reason why. And what I got most from this whole profile was that there are reasons and I need to find them out. Why is that? And it helps you dig a whole lot deeper than just saying, oh, I mean, you might be anxious at times. No, why is that? Why? And then, you can go down. So
Yeah.
transformation is available, and you can get it through this framework. And I encourage all leaders that are listening and those that may not be in a leadership position just to
Mm.
go down this road of finding out how you're being, how you're relating, because it truly is a key factor in how well you will succeed. Now, Ashkan, you wrote this book. I have it in front of me. Being the source of power. You're in our conversations, and I don't know how much of it you want to share, but you're working on a secondary piece to this. Don't know if it's complementary, but it is a similar subject, but a smaller content. Would you like to share a little bit about this book?
Sure, sure. I would also like to add to that transformation conversation. So if you like, because yeah, I think that there's some important things that to be addressed around transformation. Actually, it makes me quite passionate because there is a level of suffering comes with that. I will talk about that very soon. But with regards to the book, yeah, so this particular book being, which, I released it last year, is the body of work. It's almost 700 pages, 600 and something pages, 70 something pages. And in it's not a purely philosophical book. It's not an academic book, but it's quite heavy in terms of like it has lots of footnotes and lots of references, and it brings like philosophical terms here and there, and some part of it is quite technical. So it's more like a book that it can be read. I did my best to create this linear narrative, but it's a heavy book. It's a massive investment. Of time, basically. I would recommend it to people that are really curious and sincere in knowing what this whole being discourse is. Yeah. But in the next book is going to be, it's designed in such a way that a broader audience can enjoy, can understand it. Encouraging the people that are not familiar with this being discourse to read it, and still like it's like 330 something pages. It's still being compiled. But yeah, so it's an easier read. It's more linear. It's less technical. Less distraction is on the pages. There's no footnote, for example, or necessarily philosophical terms. I would recommend people to read the second book. It's called Human Being. And then, like if they're interested to go deeper, then they can definitely read Being, the main body of work. So that's basically. So very likely that the launch of the book is going to be most at the end of July. Well, we can actually give you the exact date, and then you can put it in the description. So if anyone wants to join, you're welcome to join. It's going to be online over Zoom. And yeah, so that's basically the book. But let me go back to the transformation conversation, if you don't mind. So see, we talked about behavioralism. To just say, oh, like it's human and its behaviors, and through conditioning and the environment, the impact of environment, then like you're going to react in certain way. Now, and that's quite dominant even in the HR, like the human resources in corporations. For example, like many of the terms that we use, including human resources itself, like as if humans are resources. But it's the work that human beings do is a resource, not the whole human being. So we're not like, it's like we are degrading human beings to purely their functionality, as if like they're objects, they're commodities. So, and or for example, terms that we use like performance review, you know, so as if like this particular person was hired to do series of things, to do series of tasks, and then they're now underperforming or they're not performing as they were supposed to. Now we'll go and put them on performance review. Yeah. Or for example, if there are some misbehaviors, we start talking to them, go, this behavior doesn't belong here, change it. And I mean, we should be naive to think that is going to work. You know, they may put a mask on their face, you know, being this pretense type of thing, and but they're not going to transform. They're not going to change. You know, or you know, if these deeper qualities are not addressed, then you may end up going and micromanaging people. You know, because there are so many behaviors. You know, that there's so many behaviors that one needs to go and address. And no one likes their behaviors being fixed. Yeah, and these are the terms that are actually being used, you know, in the corporate world. Now, so in one hand, then we have like this behavioralist we use. Also, we have we use that we are fixed objects in a sense. There are views that this is your personality type. Like many assessments out there, many like they tap into the personality type theory, yeah, which we don't at all here. So they categorize people in different categories, and this is who you are. Not even this is how you are. This is who you are, and it's quite dominant. Even, you know, very renowned thinkers. I don't want to name anyone, but renowned thinkers that have lots of followings, and you know, there are like clinical psychologists, etc., etc. They suggest that, you know, your temperament, or you know, sometimes they say personality, but I think that mainly they mean temperament. Your temperament is set, therefore your personality is set. And it's so hard to transform that it's better for you to just acknowledge it, accept it, and make your critical decisions, like around your career, your choice of spouse, partner, whatever, based off that. I mean, to think, and then on the other side, then we have like gurus and, you know, experts that they go like positive thinking, you know, positive psychology, whatever, you know, like you just think positively and things are going to, you know, or, you know, you with these affirmation sentences, and you go like this way, and somehow opportunities are miraculously going to land on your lap. And I mean, and everything is mutable. Like you just define yourself as you wish and go for it, and be, you know, do the hard work and you're going to get there. I mean, these are the two ends of the extreme. Now, if someone's coming to you and going that, oh, you know, you're a fixed object, you can't transform, transformation is not possible, or it's so hard that it's better not to even try, just escape from them. I mean, there is nothing more depressing than living like from that viewpoint. And shockingly, you know, I see many even psychologists, they think that way, you know. So no, we definitely know that transformation is hard. You know, it can be hard. It can be hard, but so any other achievement that you want to, you know, have in life, it can be hard. I mean, that's the nature of it. You know, you want to raise a family, it's hard. You want to build a business, lift a startup, it's hard. You want to, whatever of value perhaps in our life could be hard, and transformation is no exception. But yeah, definitely, we've seen, and you don't need to even have empirical data like as we do in my organization, the way that the work that I do. Like just looking into the society, you see many people that they actually transform. They transform their body shape. I mean, they get fit. They're dealing with that are overweight, et cetera, and they transform their body. People transform their relationship. People transform. Many of these high achievers, when I'm studying their past, they're not necessarily coming from wealthy families. They're not even born in the right countries with all those blessings, etc., etc. Many of them, they didn't have the luxury of having a mother and a father or parents that they spend time with them. So therefore, um, we have true examples of transformation. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just I wanted to talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up because you talked about transformation of body right back in January. I got on the scale. It almost said 200 pounds.
Oh,
And I said, and I
nice.
told myself, I said, no, sir, not,
Yeah,
not you,
I'm glad
not
to
in
have.
this, not in this lifetime. And I'm 170, and it took some work. It took a lot of dedication. It took a lot of commitment. It took a lot of saying no when I
Mm,
wanted to say yes, right? but
yeah.
but that transformation occurred through the dedication of my
Mm,
actions, and how what the relationship it was that I was having with food and with exercise and with sleep and with wellness. All these things ended up supporting my desire to be fit, to be healthy. And
mm,
so I'm glad that you brought that up because
yeah.
there are a lot of folks that will downplay your ability to transform. And
Yeah.
then there is a set of group that will just elevate you to like, hey, just say it and it'll happen. And although I believe that positive affirmations will help, they're not the all, end all to be all, right? You just don't say it and bam, it happens. You
Yeah.
have to put action to it. Um, and we all know that that's how that works. But thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Ashkan, if people listening to this,
Mhm.
they're curious about the being framework, they're curious about the profile, they're curious about anything that you may bring as far as literature and teaching and speaking and all these other things that you can provide. How will they get a hold of you to get that information?
Sure. So I'm more than happy, like I'll give you a list of links that you can add to the description. And but there's ashkantashvir.com, my personal website. People can go there. You can also go to engenesis.com/@ Ashkan, my first name, dash Tashvir. So that's my profile on our platform, Engenesis platform. I'll provide all these links to you, and more than happy to connect with people. Yeah.
Well, definitely. I will make sure to get that information and put it part of the show notes and video so folks can get a hold of Ashkan. And I tell you that the moment that we had communicated and you had talked about this framework, I
Mm,
definitely am a believer in that there's a way to structure your being to be the most successful you can be, right? We only get one life. We only get one chance at this life. Some have 50, some have 70, some have, like my dad's still around. He's 90 something years old, right?
Right.
I think he's like a Egyptian mummy because he just keeps going.
Huh?
He's ageless, but Lord bless him. But so there's not a specific time frame, but we all are, and we all are being, and in one way, shape, or form. How do you perfect that? How do you refine that? How do you make sure that that what you are being is exactly what you want to be? And most people struggle with that, with what they want. You talk about congruent, right? With what they want and what they are doing may not be matching up.
Mhm.
And so this is a great way of making sure that we do. So, folks, it has been a pleasure. Ashkan, thank you so much for being with me so
Thank you.
early. I know in Australia is 7, 8 in the morning over there. But it's been so good to speak with you. And folks, today's episode is sponsored by Triad Leadership Solutions. But more importantly, if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment right now. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can add to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like for me to feature on this podcast, we love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we love to end this show, success to you.